There is a sound that air traffic controllers dread above all others. It's not an explosion, it's not a scream. It's silence. January 31st, 2000. Alaska Airlines Flight 261 departed Puerto Vallarta, Mexico at 1:37 in the afternoon. Destination, San Francisco, with a connecting stop in Seattle. 88 people were aboard. Families returning from vacation, business travelers, a Little League team heading home. Captain Ted Thompson, 53 years old, over 17,000 flight hours. First Officer Bill Tansky, 57, a decorated career pilot. Captain Ted Thompson had been flying for Alaska Airlines since 1980. The man to his right, First Officer Bill Tansky, had logged nearly as many hours in the air as most pilots twice his age. This was not their first flight, not even close. They were, by every measure, exactly the kind of crew you want in the cockpit when things go wrong. And at 4:09 p.m. Pacific time, things went very, very wrong. Every commercial jet has what engineers call a horizontal stabilizer, the small wing-like structure at the tail that controls the aircraft's pitch. Its angle can be adjusted in flight using a component called a jackscrew. The jackscrew is a simple machine, a threaded metal rod that screws in and out to tilt the stabilizer up or down. The jackscrew on Flight 261 was overdue for lubrication. Investigators would later discover that maintenance intervals had been extended, stretched beyond what Boeing and federal regulations permitted. The grease that should have coated those threads had long since worn away. The acme nut that rode along the jackscrew, the critical component that translated mechanical movement into controlled flight, was eating itself alive. At 4:09 p.m., the jackscrew jammed. The horizontal stabilizer locked into a 2.5-degree nose-down position. The aircraft began an uncommanded descent. The crew could feel it immediately. What he did not know, what no one on the ground knew, was that those stripped threads had already passed the point of no return.
The crew declared an emergency and diverted toward Los Angeles International Airport. Air traffic controllers cleared their path. Emergency crews on the ground were placed on standby. The situation was serious, but it was manageable. Pilots trained for jammed control surfaces. They had options. They had altitude. They had time. At 4:17, Thompson and Tansky attempted a maneuver designed to free a jammed jackscrew. They would depressurize the hydraulic system controlling the stabilizer and try to override it manually. It's a move that had worked before. In simulators, in textbooks. The logic was sound. The execution was precise. And it made everything worse. The acme nut, already stripped to its last threads, finally let go. The stabilizer slammed to its full nose-down limit, nearly 11 degrees. At 31,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean, Alaska Airlines Flight 261 pitched nearly inverted. What happened next may be the most remarkable act of airmanship in the history of commercial aviation. With their stabilizer locked at maximum nose-down, and the aircraft in a near-inverted dive, the two men used differential engine thrust and elevator inputs to perform an unauthorized improvised recovery maneuver, and it worked. They pulled the aircraft back to straight and level flight. They were at 18,000 feet. They were still flying. For a moment, just a moment, it seemed like they might make it. But the damage was complete. With the stabilizer fully deflected and the acme nut gone, the elevator, the remaining control surface, was fighting against a force it was never designed to overcome alone. The plane was locked in a death struggle with gravity. At 4:21 p.m., in his final radio call, Ted Thompson's words were not a goodbye. They were a command. He was still trying to save his airplane. The radar screen. The blip accelerating downward. Then, Alaska Airlines Flight 261 struck the surface of the Pacific Ocean at approximately 490 miles per hour, 4 miles off the coast of Port Hueneme, California. The time was 4:21 p.m. and 38 seconds. All 88 people aboard were killed. Among them, a family of 4 returning from vacation. A retired couple celebrating their anniversary. A 9-year-old boy traveling with his father. The National Transportation Safety Board conducted one of the most extensive investigations in aviation history. What they found in the wreckage was not mechanical mystery. It was mechanical negligence. The acme nut had been worn down to nearly nothing. Investigators estimated it had been running dry for months, possibly years. Maintenance logs showed the lubrication interval had been extended without proper engineering authorization. The grease that should have been there was simply never applied. 88 people died, not because the sky failed them, not because the aircraft was flawed by design. They died because a maintenance crew skipped a step, and no one caught it. In the years following the crash, the FAA overhauled maintenance oversight requirements for the MD-83 Jackscrew system. Airlines were ordered to reduce lubrication intervals. New inspection protocols were mandated industry-wide. Ted Thompson and Bill Tansky are remembered not as the men who lost Flight 261, but as the men who refused to stop fighting for it. In the final seconds of the flight data recorder, there is no panic, no chaos, no surrender. Just two pilots doing their jobs. Until the very last moment, the ocean doesn't remember them, but we should.